Hi, this is a help video for booklet 13H, and as you can see, it's a non-calculator paper. So that means you must not use a calculator on any question whatsoever. If you do use a calculator because you can't do it without a calculator, then you're just cheating yourself because you know that you won't be able to do that in the real thing. So if you come to a question where you can't do it without using a calculator, please ask me and I will help you. As ever, the purpose of this video is to give you a hand on questions if you're at home and there's no one at home who can give you a hand, just like me when I was your age. The purpose of this video is to give you a hand on a few questions to hopefully help you get a better mark, which then aids your confidence. So as ever, the idea is that you should try and do as much of the booklet on your own without looking at the video, and then use the video to give you some help to answer a few more questions. A few more questions means a few more marks, means a better grade, means a better confidence and more motivation. That's how it works. Okay, let's move on. So we got to make sure that, let's go on, let's go to here. Okay, so question 1. Work out an estimate for the value of 297. Now that actually, for some reason, I don't know why that arrow is there. It should be multiplying. So it's 297 multiplied by 9.44 and then divide by 0.503. Now what you must not do is work out what it actually is, because you can't use a calculator. But a common mistake is for people to actually try and work out what that actually is and then round it off. No, that's not what you need to do. You need to round off each number to one significant figure. Okay, so this is in the hundreds, round it to the nearest hundred. This is units, so round it to the nearest unit. This is tenths, so round it to the nearest tenth. Round each of those numbers off and then multiply it and divide with those rounded off numbers. And that is your estimate. Just a reminder to you that down here, just as a tip, you're going to be dividing by 0.5. Now, dividing by 0.5 is not the same thing as halving a number. If you think about it, if you wanted to say how many 50p's, that's half of a pound, make £4, it would be 4 divided by 0.5. Now, how many 0.5s make 4? The answer is 8. Okay, so if you're trying to divide by 0.5, a common way, the way that I would do that, is to simply double both numbers. So rather than say, for example, 4 divided by 0.5, double both numbers and then you get 8 divided by 1. That question has the same answer because you've treated both numbers the same, but it's much easier to do. Question 2. The diagram shows a square ABCD. M is the midpoint of AB, okay, and N is the midpoint of AD. The area of the shaded triangle AMN is 18 square centimeters. Work out the area of triangle MCN. Now, if I were you, what I would do is think about, rather than trying to work out lengths and work out what the lengths must be, think in terms of fractions. Okay, if that is halfway along here and that is halfway along here, how many of these triangles would you need to make this whole square? Okay, just picture it. You've got one here, you've got one here. That would make a square. Okay, so how many of these triangles would make the whole square? So you can work out what the whole square would be just from this shaded triangle. Now, how many of these big triangles, this one here and this one here, which are the same, how many of those would you need to work out or to make this whole square? So here's a triangle here, put another one there if it's there, and so on. So how many of these triangles would make the whole triangle, the whole square? And from that you can work out what the area would be. So you know the area of that, you should know what the area of that is, and that, and you should know what the area of the whole square is because you've worked out how many of these, and they're 18, make the whole square. So if you take that, that, and that away from the whole square, what's left is your triangle. Show you working out. Oop, wrong way. Question 3. On the number line below, show the set of values of x for which -1 is less than x, which is less than or equal to 4. So this is a simple matter of drawing a line on your number line that starts on 4 and ends on -1, and that might get you a mark. But you remember, you need to put a circle at the end of the line, and you need to remember, sometimes you color it in and sometimes you leave it blank. Here, x can't actually be -1 because it's -1 is less than x. But here x can actually be 4 because x is less than or equal to, that's the difference of that symbol compared to that one, it can actually be 4. That tells you whether you're going to color in the circle and the circle here. If you're not sure, look back at earlier work or Google it. Solve the inequality. 4y minus 7 is less than 15. You will solve that in exactly the same way as you would do if it said 4y minus 7 equals 15. You do exactly the same steps. Show you're working out because you've got 2 marks. But just make sure you remember at the end to put down y is less than whatever the answer is rather than y equals whatever it is. So treat it like an equation, treat it like that's an equal sign, and do what you would do if it was an equation, making sure to remember to write your answer down as less than. Okay, there are 140 balloons in a packet. The balloons are red or yellow or blue or green. 20% of the balloons are red, 2/7 of the balloons are yellow, and the ratio of blue balloons, beg your pardon, to the number of green balloons is 5 to 9. Work out the number of green balloons in the packet. So let's have a quick look at the bottom of this, and how many marks do we get? 5 marks. So we can pick up some marks even if we don't get to the end of this. First of all, don't forget you can't use a calculator. 20% of the balloons are red. Okay, you should be able to work out what 10% is, and from that 20%. So you can work out how many balloons are red. Then you can work out what 2/7 of this number is. What do you do to find 1/7 of a set of numbers? Okay, and then you want 2/7. So that should mean you should be able to work out the number of yellow balloons. Okay, so you've got your yellow balloons, you've got your red balloons, so you should be able to work out how many balloons left are either green or blue. And those need to be split in the ratio 5 to 4. So you can work out how many green balloons there are. Question A, write down the value of 10 to the power of -2. Okay, remember we did this in lessons recently. You know what 10 squared is, but this is -2. So what is the difference? What does that minus do? It does not make it negative. Remember that. Write the number in standard form. You just need to move this decimal point, counting all the way. I'll leave that to you. Here, write the following numbers in order of size. Start with the smallest number. I would recommend you wrote these numbers out as actual numbers first of all. Then use that to put them in order, and then write your answer down here. Make sure that you start with the smallest number. Even if they're in order, they have to start with the smallest number, not the largest number. And make sure you write down these original numbers, not the ones you changed them to in order to put them in order. Okay, it must be these numbers that you write down in order. So question 6 says, the diagram shows some information about junctions A, B and C on a motorway. Raja drove from A to B at an average speed of 50 miles per hour. The distance from A to B is 10 miles. Raja took 30 minutes to drive from A to C, that's the whole journey, and he drove from A to C, once again the whole journey, at an average speed of 62 miles per hour. Work out Raja's average speed as he drove from B to C. Now what I recommend you do, we've got 4 marks for this question, so we don't want to throw away marks. We want to get as many marks as we possibly can for it, even if we don't possibly do the whole thing. And I've shown this to you before, but what I recommend you do is something like this. You put the information into a table, because what makes this difficult is actually working out what information you've got and what you need to find out. So I've set up a table and we've got 3 bits. We've got the journey from A to B, the journey from B to C and the journey from A to C. That's the whole journey. And we need to know distance, time, and speed. I've put these in this particular order. The order doesn't matter. So the first thing I did is I put the information that I've got into the table. So I know that the distance from A to B is 10 miles, and I know that the speed was 50 miles per hour. What else do I know? I know that Raja took 30 minutes to drive from A to C. This is the whole journey. And the average speed was 62 miles per hour. So already I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, this time here has got to be faster than that bit there, because if he did that first part at 50 miles per hour and yet the average speed is 62 miles per hour, he must have been going pretty fast here. That's what I'm expecting. Okay, can we work out anything? Well, it'd be good to work out the time, how long it took to do this journey. Now, you're traveling at 50 miles per hour. What does that mean? It means you travel 50 miles in every hour. Okay, well, how long would it take you to drive, say, 25 miles? Well, 25 miles is half of 50. So if you do 50 in an hour, you would do 25 miles in half an hour, 30 minutes. But it's not 10. But you've just worked out how long it would take for 25. Okay, what about 10? Just a minute ago, 25 was half an hour because 25 is half of 50. What fraction of 50 is 10? If it was a quarter of 50, it's not. It would take you a quarter of an hour. What fraction of 50 is 10? That will tell you the number of minutes it will take to do this part of the journey. Okay, now, so you can write that bit in there. And now, if this part of the journey is done in that number of minutes and you know the time for the total amount of the journey, you can work out how long the time took to do the journey from B to C. Because this is just the total of that time and that time. You've just worked out that time, so you can work out what that needs to be. Okay, we need to know what the distance is from B to C. Or can I work out what the whole distance is? I'm traveling at 62 miles per hour. That means I travel 62 miles every hour. But I've only traveled for half an hour. So what must that distance be? Now, I can work out now how long. Okay, I can work out that distance, and therefore I can work out what that distance is. This and this needs to add up to make that. So I've already picked up some marks. But now I've got the distance from B to C, and I've got the time from B to C. Can I use that to work out what the speed would be in miles per hour? Have a go. Okay, let's move on. Question 7 says Kirsty bought a new TV. The total cost of the TV was £360, including VAT at 20%. Work out the cost of the TV before the VAT was added. Now, a common mistake that people make, and I hope you don't make it, is they say, okay, well, 20% was added on, so let's find 20% of this and take it off. And that sounds reasonable, but it doesn't work. Why? Because the original price was smaller and you added 20% of that on. If you find 20% of that, you're finding 20% of a bigger number than what it used to be. So you're taking off more than was put on. So the way to do this question, if you haven't got a calculator, and this is reasonably easy numbers because you haven't got a calculator, is to start off and say, right, well, I started off with 100% and I added on 20%. So this represents 120% of the original price. So write down literally 120% equals 360. Now what you want to find out is 100%. Now if you know that 120% is 360, what could you do to find out 20%? What could you do to 120 to make it into 20? What could you divide by? And then you divide that by the same number. That will then tell you what 20% was. And then you can take that amount off of that 360 to get your original price. Question 8. Complete the table of values for 2 divided by x. On the grid below, draw the graph of y equals 2 divided by x for values of x from 0.2 to 5. So we've got to work out what these are without a calculator. You must not use a calculator, so you're going to need to show some working out. Now, some of these are fairly easy. For example, if x is 4, it's going to be 2 divided by 4, so that's a half, easy. When x is 2, it's going to be 2 divided by 2, that's easy. When x is 1, it's going to be 2 divided by 1, that's easy. So you've got those ones, and you've got that, okay, and you've got that. The only thing you need to work out is this one here. So you need to work out 2 divided by 0.2. Well, one way would be, once again, like we did in a previous question, instead of doing 2 divided by 0.2, no one likes dividing by decimals, multiply both those numbers by 10. So instead of doing 2 divided by 0.2, multiply both numbers by 10. The answer will stay the same, and it will be easier to do without a calculator. Even if you can't work that out, work those out and plot your points and join up with a nice smooth curve. You'll still pick up some marks. Okay, so question 9 says A and B and C are 3 points. The coordinates of A are -2, 5. The coordinates of B are 1, 1. And the coordinates of C are 19, -23. Does the point C lie on the straight line that passes through A and B? You must show how you get your answer. Now, what you mustn't do, because it's not going to be accurate, is draw a grid, plot those points on, and draw the line. That's not what you should do, and you won't get marks for that. What you've got to do is think about gradient. Now, if A and B and C are on the same straight line, the line that joins A to B will be the same steepness as the line that joins A to C. If they're a different steepness, they'll be on a different line. So it's all about gradient. So let's just refresh our memory about how we find gradient. You need to find out two things and then do a calculation. So if we're going from A to B, I'll do this for you. You need to find out the change in x, how much you've gone along. You've gone from -2 along to 1. That's a difference of 3. You've gone 3 to the right. What about from 5 to 1? That's a difference of 4. You've gone down 4. So we should write -4 because we're going down. We've gone from 5 down to 1. So our x number is 3 and our y number is -4. And the gradient is found by dividing those two numbers, the change in the y divided by the change in x. So it's -4, the change in y, divided by 3, the change in x. Leave that as a fraction. Don't bother doing a decimal. Now, in the same way, imagine traveling from A to C. How far along do you go? You go from -2 to 19. What is that change in? What's the change? What's the difference between those two numbers? It's not 17, by the way. And here you've gone from 5 to -23. What's the change in those numbers? And then you work out what the gradient is between those two numbers or 2 points in the same way as you just did before, and you compare them. If they are equivalent fractions, so this one, for example, was -4 over 3. If you got one that was -8 over 6, that's an equivalent fraction. So it's the same gradient. So they're on the same line. But if it's not an equivalent fraction, then it's not in a straight line. Okay, so working through that, even starting to do that, will pick up some marks because I'm sure, look, you've got 3 marks. You can pick up 1 mark for that at least. Question 10. The cumulative frequency graph shows information about the heights of 60 fir trees. Use the graph to find an estimate for the median height. Okay, so the maximum height was 50. How do you find the median? You find the halfway mark. Now, on a cumulative frequency curve, okay, they're all arranged in order. And so you find half of 60. And if you thought that was 40, of course it's not. You read down to the across, and you read down, and you read down what that number is. You need to show what the line is. Show the line. Okay, so half of 60, because it's the median, that's the halfway mark. Read across to the line, read down, and say thank you very much for how many marks? Nice, easy mark. Use the graph to find an estimate for the interquartile range of the heights. Okay, will you find the quartiles in the same way? Only, what do quartiles do? They cut the numbers in half. No, they don't, in quarters. So rather than doing half of 60, what's a quarter of 60? Okay, read across, read down. That will be your lower quartile. What will the upper quartile be? That will be 3/4 of 60. Work out 3/4 of 60, find it on this line, read across, read down, and that will tell you what your upper quartile is. The interquartile range is the difference between those two numbers. So if your lower quartile was 10 and your upper quartile was 25, say, then the interquartile range would be the difference between those two numbers, 15. And you've got 2 marks for doing that. Then it says, use the graph to find an estimate for the percentage of those fir trees that have a height greater than 30 meters. Okay, well, let's go back to it. Greater than 30 meters. Here's 30. Read up and read across. Now, these are the trees that are greater than 30. So it's not going to be 50. Be careful. 30 up to the line and across. These are the number of trees that are greater than 30. These ones are below 30. And then you've got to work out roughly what that is as a percentage. Okay, so it would be something out of 60 turned into a percentage. Okay, think about how you're going to do that without a calculator. Okay, but at least get some marks for the fraction. And that's how you do it. Joe has to make h the subject of the formula d equals square root of 3h divided by 2. Here is her working. 2d is square root of 3h. 2d squared is 3h. H is going to be 2d squared divided by 3. Okay. What mistake has Joe made in the second line of her working? So this bit here is wrong. So from there to there is correct. From there to there is wrong. If this was right, is that right now? Yes. If that was right, then that would be right. So this is the line that is wrong. So have a think about what you would do. If you wanted to get rid of that square root, you'd need to square both sides. So what should it say? Write 1.136 as a fraction in its simplest form. Okay, you can miss that question out. Okay, if you want to know how to do it, it's actually quite fairly simple and you can pick up some marks. So we'll do it together, maybe in lessons if people want to, or after school on Tuesday. Question 13. Describe fully the single transformation that maps triangle A onto triangle B. Now, you can see that it looks like it's been rotated and it's obviously bigger. But it says single transformation. So if you said rotate it and then enlarge it, that's two transformations. You've got to do one transformation. Okay. If the shape is bigger, but the shape is upside down, that means the enlargement is negative. To find the center of enlargement, join lines from the corresponding corners. So that's the top of the triangle and it's moved to here. So join that up with a line. Use a ruler so you don't make mistakes. This corner matches with that one. Join it up. This corner matches with that one. Join it up. All three lines, if you draw it accurately, should cross at the same place, and that is called the center of enlargement. Get some marks from this question. 14. Here is a table of values for M and R. Harry says R is inversely proportional to M because the values of R decrease by 4 and the values of M increase by 4. Is Harry correct? You must give a reason for your answer. Well, I'm not going to tell you whether he is or not. That's for you to give a reason, but just refresh your memory about what it means when two things are inversely proportional. There's two ways we can think of it. First of all, if we multiply one number by something, the other number gets divided by that thing. So, for example, to make 2 into 6, we have to multiply by 3. Therefore, 20 divided by 3 would go here. Does that work? Or to make 2 into 10, we'd have to multiply by 5. Therefore, the other number would be divided by 5. Does that work? Another way of thinking about it is that the two numbers, when you multiply them, always get you the same answer. Does that work? Make sure you write down here. Y is inversely proportional to x squared. Write down this table of values. Okay, I think what I would do is I would work out, okay, first of all, I work out what x squared is. I've got what x is, then I've got what x squared is. Write that down here. Just square those numbers. And inversely proportional means 1 over that. And then what would I need to do to those numbers to make them into this? And maybe you can work out what's missing from that. Question 15 you can miss out because we haven't done it. Question 16 you can miss that one out. And 17. 18 you can miss out if you want to. 19 you can miss out if you want to. 20 as well. 21 as well. Now, we're missing out quite a few questions, but I want you to understand that if we just pause for a moment and go back right to the very start. Okay, we've got 3 marks for question 1. 4 marks for that, that's 7. 2 marks, any more. 4 marks for that, up to 7, 4, 11 marks. 11 so far. Adding up question 4, we've got 5, that makes it 16 marks. We're already on a 4. 17, 18, 19, 20. 24, 26, 28, we're on a 5, 30, 33, 34, 35, 36, and that one there's 39. We're on a 6, easy there. Okay, so concentrating on the questions at the start and making sure you get as many of them as possible is the way to go. Don't worry about the questions at the back. Don't feel bad about the questions we miss out. Just concentrate on the ones at the front and get as many of those right as possible. Okay, folks, I hope this video was helpful to you, but as ever, if it wasn't, find out quickly and let me know so I can help you. Thank you.